I'm very happy to welcome back Magistrate Judy Jackson Winston. She's now the author of 2 books and a nonfiction workbook. And her latest book, The Commemoration, is a sequel to the first book, which we had.
You know what, Kathleen? We should just wait 1 second.
Yeah, I'm going to send David
It's too difficult to hear.
Dave, please mute.
I think he stepped away from his camera.
Control, he's the control person, because you could mute him then.
Well, he said he would. So, okay, Dave, we could hear everything that was going on. So if you step away, could you mute next time?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So anyways, I was introducing Judy, and she has served as a magistrate in the Domestic Relations Court since 2017, but she's also a licensed independent social worker and an attorney. And she has helped many individuals and families who suffer from behavioral health disorders. She has a social work degree from University of Akron, a master's of social service administration from Case, and her JD from my alma mater, Cleveland Marshall. She has received several awards in her lifetime for her social work, and she is a recent finalist in the Ian Book of the Year Awards for independent authors. Magistrate Jackson's new book is a perfect way to call attention to National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month this month, and the victims of those human atrocities. Thank you to Judy for bringing these issues to light in her book. And I guess we'll get things started with a question. Can you tell us, Judy, about your experiences writing a second book compared to your first one?
Well, writing the second book was a little bit different, basically because I had the blessing of my editor, who I think is on, and that is Erica Parker, and also Magistrate Ann Weatherhead. She was a huge help in helping me with the second book. I think that is easier to write when you have the right team. My first book, I had an excellent team too. My sister-in-law, Teresa, there, she's a licensed professional clinical counselor. She was a really big help, to help me get everything done. But the editor that I paid wasn't able to get everything done the way it should have been. And Erica came in with the first book, cleaned it up, along with Ann Weatherhead, and then they were a huge help with me in the second book. So it was interesting. I think it's harder because you got to remember everything about your plot and your characters. It's harder with the second book because you can't mess up details.
Right.
Because people look at that.
And I know you want to tell us about the process because of the pandemic. So share with us how it was writing and publishing and marketing.
Well, I was pretty much almost done with the book when the pandemic started. Actually, it's me and Erica, my editor. She's of Lyrical Innovations. That's where she's from. And she is the chief director of that particular organization. We had brunch the day before they closed everything. So we were in the process of finishing the book and trying to get all, polish on it. Marketing has been a nightmare. I had a number of people who were involved, or I had a number of speaking engagements, rather, that got canceled, all of them. I actually was even, had got asked to speak at Baldwin Wallace. I was going to be speaking for one of their programs. They were going to pay me. They were going to buy a number of my books, and all of that got canceled. So it has not been easy. This is the very first presentation that I'm actually having that's specifically only about my book, and I'm very excited. And I'm very grateful and blessed to have an opportunity to be here with you all.
And there are a lot of issues in the book about human trafficking and sickle cell. Can you help readers understand these two and why they're important to you?
Well, when I was a social worker, and I worked at I still am a social worker, but when I was employed with the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board, I had the opportunity to help a mother who was dealing with a child who was a victim of human trafficking.
It looks like Judy froze. We'll just have to wait.
And I was so very moved by her story. I was in the process of writing my first book then. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, periodically you're freezing. Uh-oh. Hello,
Maybe
Can you
she
hear me?
should turn
we
her
can hear
camera
you.
off and try that.
Hello? Doug, I'm
Dave
here.
Dave suggests
I can hear
turning
you
your
guys.
camera
Can you see
off.
me?
It's iffy. If Dave suggests turning off your camera, but leaving your
Turning
voice.
it off.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what happened. I apologize for that. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. The book deals with two very
Hello?
serious subjects, human trafficking and sickle cell disease. And I said, can you tell us why that's important to you?
Well, like I was saying, when I worked with this mother, I wanted to make sure that people understood that human trafficking is a really big deal, and a bigger deal in Ohio than we may think. There are a lot of highways that take us out of Ohio. There's Canada. So there's a lot. It's a bigger issue here in Cleveland than I think people know. And it happens to all kinds of people. I think that sometimes when we think about human trafficking, we think about a certain population of people. And what I want people to understand is that this is something that can happen to anybody. So I just really wanted to bring awareness to that. And as many of you know, sickle cell is a huge part of my life. My daughter has sickle cell disease. When I was 8, my father died of sickle cell anemia. My grandmother died of sickle cell anemia. 2 of my aunts and an uncle passed away from sickle cell anemia. So when I had a child that had sickle cell anemia, or not sickle cell anemia, she has sickle cell disease, I really wanted to make a big deal about it and make sure that people knew about it. So that's why I put those things in my book. Are you guys still there?
Oh, we are all here.
Okay. You know, with the camera hidden, it's like hard to tell.
Oh, and people are nodding, and I think we're all sympathizing with these issues.
Judy, going back to your information about the sex trafficking and the outlets from Ohio, are you aware of any port issues with that, with the lake?
Well, you know what? I put that in my book because I wanted people to understand that human trafficking is a form of slavery. And when we think about slavery, we think about ships bringing people over from Africa. So I just kind of put that in my book as a way, we had to have somewhere where Melania was.
Mm-hmm.
And my editor was like, only you would think of that. So
that was perfect, actually.
But it does, it is nice when you read a book and it has those local influences or those local sites, and you can connect maybe more with what's going on.
And I did really want to do that with this book. I just want people to know about Cleveland too. Cleveland is a wonderful place to live. It's our home, and I love it. One reason why I love it is because it's cheap. It's very inexpensive to live here. And even though it's cold sometimes, but this is a nice place to live. But in every place, we have these kind of issues. And this is something that I think we need to really bring awareness to, that human trafficking is real. It doesn't just happen to poor people. It just doesn't happen to kids. It happens to all kinds of people. So we need to be really careful and look out for signs of it so that we can try to prevent it.
Now, some of the places that you recommend in the book or reference are real and some are not.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, you know what? I worked at the Adams Board for 19 years, and I had the occasion to work with adult care homes. Actually, that was a big part of what I did at the Adams Board. So, there's like 300 plus adult care homes in the, county, and a lot of people don't realize that. So I thought it would be a really nice idea to do what some of our group homes do. They have all these different names, and I made up a Better Tomorrow because like they have a lot of people have group homes in the county and they have names and they're bigger than some people think. And I just wanted to model that because that is a lot of where our clients live at. They live in homes like this. The treatment centers that I made up the names, but they are basically modeled on a lot of the treatment centers that we have here in Cuyahoga County. So they weren't real. And one of your questions you asked me about Polaris, that's the hotline for human trafficking. That is real. So that is a real hotline. If somebody is having an issue, they can call. And I really wanted to try to put those kind of things in. You just have to be really careful. I don't want to get sued for using somebody's, information. So that's why I made up some of it.
Well, I don't know if the readers did, but every time I saw one of those names, I went on the web and I looked it up and saw if it was real or what they did if it was real.
Yes.
So that was helpful, I thought, especially with regard to the rescue of our main character.
Yes. Yes.
Several times in the book, you rely on forgiveness and honesty as ways to heal. I'd like to know how important you feel those tools are in your work, and if you employ them at court, how you do that.
I do employ it in court. I think it really is important, particularly when you work in family court. A lot of people are very angry about things that have happened in the past. And what happens is when you're angry, you get stuck. And in order to heal, you need to just, sometimes forgive. One day we might need, if you believe in God, which I do, I'm a Christian, you might need God to believe you, to forgive you at the pearly gates. We don't know what we actually might need forgiveness for. So I'm always a big proponent of trying to get people to understand how important it is in trying to get the healing that we need. If you are always angry and you're just stuck and you're angry, you're never going to get better. You don't have to let somebody mistreat you to forgive them. You can just say, you know what, I forgive you, and then you move on. So I used it as in my work at the Adams Board, because a lot of times you see people who are dealing with trauma. You're dealing with people who've had things that happened in their past that are impacting their lives now. So I use it, and I try to get people to do it, but I'm like a real cheerleader. Like, we can do this. Let's try to just move on. Because people who get, what happens is in family court, oftentimes it's the children who get stuck. They're the ones who are being harmed when we, have these people fighting. So sometimes people are able to forget past what's happened and move forward. So I hope I answered the question. It was kind of a long answer. Sorry.
It was a good answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Judy, going on with that thought, a lot of your characters are did you base any character off of a real life experience with people in your profession?
I would say I did. You know what? After, I worked at the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board for 19 years, but I've been a social worker since 1991.
Yeah.
And before I went to the Adams Board, I worked in foster care. So I have a lot of experience with just working with people. And what I did was just take and put, I guess, a whole bunch of people's stories together, where it's not one person. It's just, it's issues you see in a whole bunch of people's stories. I just put it together in an effort to try to raise awareness. So this is my, what I'm trying to use my platform to raise awareness about a number of issues. But the number one issue is mental health, because all of this goes back to our mental health.
And can I ask a follow-up to Dave's question?
Sure.
It did seem like there were just piling on top of each other, hurdles and heartaches for this extended family. Is that typical of a family that you serve in, your social work or your court work?
I would say it is. I think that people have a lot more problems than we're willing to admit sometimes. because we've been told that, there are certain things you just don't talk about. There's certain things that stay in house, and what happens is that
Uh-oh.
they don't have anybody to talk to. They don't know how to go about getting the help that they need. Usually when people have an opportunity just to talk about what's going on, it helps. But I think this is, reflective of what we see.
So is this a spiritual process for you when you write your books?
I think it is. You know what? It's really been helpful to me to use this as an ability to de-stress too. Because when you listen to problems all day, it's difficult. We have to be honest with ourselves. So I sit down and I lose myself in these characters. It's actually like I'm them. It's like I'm living an alternative life through my characters. So I do find it to be helpful.
We had a comment from Teresa who said that she uses forgiveness as a strategy in her work to help them find healing. And she
Absolutely.
said it's not easy for everyone.
It's not. It's not. And some people, there's some things that happen to people that people feel are unforgivable. And they won't forgive as easy. But we work with folks. You can forgive but not forget. It's okay to remember. But sometimes again it can get you stuck. And that's what we want to do, is get people unstuck if we can.
Sounds good. Before we open it up to questions and deal with some of the issues in the book, you left us hanging again at the end there, Judy. Are we talking sequel upon sequel?
Well, we're talking a sequel. I had to definitely. I'm gonna have to do something the way I left you all hanging this time. I like to read, and I've read a lot of books, and it's part of a marketing strategy too, where you get people to follow you, and they start to like your work, and they want to read what you write. They want to find out what happened. But I also didn't want to cheat people. Like, these books are still a pretty good length. I don't want to do like a 50-page book, and then you got to come back and buy another 50-page book. I'm not trying to do that, but I do want to, have good stuff in it that's great content that people can learn from.
What did you edit out of the book that you might have wanted to put in, or did you edit it out to save it for a future book? Specifically, what happened to Rike and the truth about Franklin and Juliet?
Well, you know what? I'm going to put those things in the third book.
Okay.
I think those are things that are important that we're going to, go ahead and delve into more. So, I do have a strategy. It's funny because when I wrote the first book, Magistrate Weatherhead, she read it. And then she said, I just want to ask like 3 questions. And I said, okay, you can. And she said, do you know where Melania is? And I said, I do. She said, do you know what the postcard means? I said, I do. Because you kind of got to think a little bit ahead when you're trying to put extra things in your book. So maybe like the postcard in the first book didn't seem that important maybe in the first book, but in the second book, you see that it was important. So I just try to tie those type of things together.
Did you have to reread your first book before you started writing your second book?
I did have to reread. And I have a third editor. I don't know if he's on, Michael Payne. He was a really big help too. He actually helped me see some things I needed to change in the book. Like, I'm not good with direction. I'm good with driving my car, but I'm horrible with like east, west, south, north, all that kind of stuff. And I guess that what I put, with the vote was factually incorrect. So he was able to catch that for me, and we were able to fix it.
Like a technical advisor or something, right?
Right. It's a lot to remember.
Looks like we have a question here. And we're
Yes.
going to open it up in a minute. Did you see the question?
I think I did. A little bit of it.
It says, why did you choose to entertain us rather than just focusing on the issues of mental illness, etc. directly?
You know, these are such heavy topics that I don't think that people really want to have this much of a conversation where you're just throwing information down their throat. Mental health is a taboo topic in all communities. You know, when you think about mental health, people sometimes equate that with your intelligence. When I worked at the Adams Board, I would have professionals whispering on my line. They were afraid that their coworkers or people who were around them might find out that they have bipolar disorder or some other mental health issue. And what I want to do is educate people, but I feel like, you know, everybody loves a juicy story. That's a good way to get information across, is when you're reading something that's entertaining, you're able to get the information easier than you might think. So that's why I did that.
Would you be interested in taking some live questions from our audience?
I sure would.
Okay, so if people have questions, please unmute to ask your questions or make your comments to Judy.
Hi, Judy. This is Judge Emanuela Groves.
Hi, Judge Emanuela Groves.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Everybody congratulate Judge Emanuela Groves. She is our newest appeal courts judge. Yay! I can't see you, but you can see me. You can hear me.
Well, you know, I was the mental health court judge for 3 years, so the past 3 years for the Cleveland court, and the issue of mental health is very significant. And the more I talk to people and as they share their family history and members of their family, that it is more prevalent than we realize. So I just want to thank you for bringing awareness to this issue. And I also appreciate your genuine sincerity in terms of how to deal with problems and people, and you can just see the social work in you. And I just want to applaud and thank you for your service and for also putting pen to paper. I mean, we all have a story to write, but very few of us are willing to take the time and energy to put pen to paper. So I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it so much.
Hi, this is Magistrate Morton. Judy, hi. I wish I could see you again. I wish you could try to.
Let me see if I can take it off and see if you guys can see me. I'm scared though.
Oh, we lost the gentleman though. I wonder if you took him off. Oh.
Can you see me?
No, we can't see you. That's odd. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you again how much I enjoyed. Oh, there you are. I've read both of her books, and I enjoyed both of them. Judy was one of our guests at a book club that I belonged to, and she came to talk about her first book. And so everybody was really looking forward to the second one, and me as well. And I really enjoyed how Judy ties all of the issues, the mental health piece, into a story that a family story, friend story, a friendship story, and now with the second book, the trafficking, the human trafficking, and the sickle cell. Because I really think that you can learn more about subjects when they're put into a story rather than just giving people a bunch of facts and subject matter. Because of the fact that that those type of issues don't happen in a vacuum, they happen in actual stories. I'm a child custody magistrate, and I deal with a lot of the issues that she talked about. There's so much mental health. I mean, I would say maybe 85% of the people on my docket have mental health issues. And then I have also had some cases where I've had some parents involved in human trafficking and some kids in foster placement and things of that nature. So I really enjoyed that book, and I really learned a lot more about human trafficking as well as sickle cell disease. I didn't even know there was a difference. I just thought there was just sickle cell anemia, and I just thought that was it. I didn't even know there was even a thing called sickle cell disease. So not only do her books entertain, but I also was educated by it. And I'm looking for, I was a little mad though at the end, because I said, no, wait a minute now. Okay, I gotta get the third book. Okay, because you gotta
I gotta
go.
write the third book first though, girl. I gotta write the third book.
You have to go into more about that child being, what was it? He had a child with his sister. And for some people, they might think that's convoluted. But I have cases like that where I have brothers who have raped their sisters, and it's just awful. I deal with absolutely awful cases, but they are real. And so I think maybe some readers might read it and think, oh, where's she go? How did she come up with this? But those type of stories do actually happen. I can vouch for that. And so I just really want to congratulate you again, Judy. Keep up the good work. I really, really enjoyed it. I like also the piece about the home that the people were living in.
The group home. Yes,
the
halfway house, right.
Exactly, because I really am passionate about the kids in the foster care system who age out and may not have any place to go. And I think that's a good thing to have, is to have like a group home or a place that they could belong to also. So I really enjoyed all of the things that you did. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. And I want to tell you all, if you all have not seen Magistrate Morton's show, Public Opinion, I highly suggest on her show. She does an awesome job. And I don't know if everybody knows, but Pamela was also in the movie, tell them the name of the movie, White Boy Rick. She was she's the actress. I'm so blessed to be around all these talented jurists. I saw Judge Moore, Lauren Moore. She's also an author who wrote 2 books. I saw her come on. I'm blessed to be in such company.
And we did have Judge Lauren Moore as a speaker here when she wrote Eyes Like Mine. So we do have a question, Judy. I don't know if you got this. Do you think your book and speaking tours are having a tangible, positive impact on the community by giving them a different perspective on mental illness? Did you hear that, Judy?
Looks like she froze up again.
She froze again.
Oh, okay. Look, let me go off.
Hello, Judy?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you hear that question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little spotty, but we can hear you.
Okay, I guess it really is the camera. The camera doesn't work for me, guys. I messed up too. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Pretty well, yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. I said I dressed up for you. I really I can see you though, but I guess my webcam, I need to shut off. I think it's having a positive impact. I really have been trying to do a lot of engagements to let people know about these worthy issues. I do want to speak a little bit, if I can, about the differences with sickle cell disease. We didn't talk a lot about that. And I want to just be honest and transparent and share a little bit of my story. My daughter has sickle cell disease. She has something called hemoglobin SC. I was completely unaware that there were different forms of sickle cell disease when I married my husband. Actually, one reason why I found out a little bit about it is because my niece, Mariah, has hemoglobin C. She has like a trait of sickle cell like I do. And that was the first time I ever heard of it. It's when my sister-in-law, Teresa, told me about it. And then when I, found out that my daughter was going to be born with sickle cell disease, and it was like something I just, had no idea that this could be possible. I really wanted to use my experience to let people know about this. And so we need to raise awareness and also make sure that people understand that it is a predominantly African-American disease, but you're seeing this in other races now with everybody, mixing and stuff. And what Dave put in there is so important. We do need people to donate blood, in particular in the middle of this pandemic. Sickle cell blood donation is severely down. So if you all could be of help with that, that really would be good. Like, I'm trying to get those words out to people. Tell your friends if there's something you want to do for the world, give some blood. It can help save a life. And that's not just for sickle cell disease, it's also for all, different blood diseases. So just want to put a plug in for that. More questions?
Hello, everyone. I am Teresa Winston. I am Judy's sister-in-law. I'm married to the other twin and live in Minnesota. I don't have a question, but just more so a comment. I just want to say that I am so proud of my sister-in-law. And she's worked really hard and really, standing at the forefront and being a huge advocate for mental illness. And so, as I was listening to, I think was it Pamela Morton? Some of the things that she was saying about, some of the cases that she has. I am a professional clinical psychotherapist here in Minnesota, and I own and operate my own outpatient clinic. And so I am definitely at the forefront and really hearing and seeing a lot of these stories. And it's true. All the things that Judy outlined in her book, these are some of the things that I see every day in my practice. And so I just want to say that I'm so proud of her and all of her hard work and her efforts to really try to eradicate the stigma that's out there with mental illness. And it is just as prevalent here in Minnesota as it is in the state of Ohio. And being that we're in the midst of a pandemic, I've seen more and more people who are reaching out for therapy and for counseling. And so, yeah, this is real. This is definitely real. And, but again, I'm really proud of you, Judy, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Terry.
Maybe the two of you could address this comment that I'm hearing on the news. Oh, and if we're hearing ambient noises in the background, if someone could mute if you're not speaking. Could you address the comment I heard on the radio that 50% of the country is on antidepressants?
Yes. And you know what? I was just telling, I want to also say hello to my judge. I saw her, Judge Tanya Jones. Hi, Judge. I was just telling her about this.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
And also our administrative judge, Leslie Celebrezzi. Hi, Judge. Look, everybody's judge when they're in here with us. Hey, Judge.
Hey, thank you. Nice to see everybody.
What I want to say is that, I was just telling Judge Jones about a study that I saw in Japan, that in October, they had more suicides than they did just in the 1 month than they have from everybody who's died of coronavirus since it started. This pandemic is taking a serious, serious toll on our mental health. We are isolated from our families and friends. We are isolated from our coworkers. We're spending an enormous amount of time at home. People are just confused. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't plan for tomorrow. And I think that's playing a role here. And we just really, I don't even know what the answers are except to tell people that there is help. Terry just talked about her practice. There's help. You can get telehelp. We have telecounseling and therapy. There are people who are still have their practices open. And we really need to reach out for that help if we need it. One suggestion that I have for people is that if you're feeling isolated, reach out to the people around you. Call your family, call your friends, Zoom with your family, Zoom with your friends. And one of the things me and Pamela talked about on her show is I really am a proponent for writing letters. I used to love to get letters. Write me a letter. Just write me a good letter. Write letters to people. Reach out to folks. If they're your elderly family members, they would love to get a letter. If you don't have somebody to write a letter to, adopt a nursing home. You know, people love to get cars, make things, but we need to figure out a way to keep ourselves busy, you know, and try to, you know, do what we can to not be depressed, but know that certain things we are going to be depressed about. If we're losing family members, you're going to be somewhat depressed. If you don't know how you're going to feed yourself tomorrow or your family, that's going to make you somewhat depressed. And that's normal. But what we're going to do is not get stuck. We're going to work on a plan to try to make sure that we stay as happy as we can given everything that's going on.
And so I would like to say that I agree with everything with Judy just said. And I'm not sure of the statistics of the country, but just focusing in on my own caseload and my clinic caseload, I have about a caseload of at least 200 people. And I would say my clinic is probably double that amount. And I would say probably about half of that caseload of folks are either taking some type of psychotropic medication, whether it be antidepressant or medication for mood disorders or anxiety. So, you know, those numbers are really large. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to have some coping mechanisms like you suggest. And everybody needs different, other than chocolate, different coping mechanisms.
I love chocolate. It always helps me.
Me too.
Hi, everyone.
My
name is Erica, and I've had the pleasure of working with Judy for like 3 projects now. She is the ideal client. Let me just say, she knows what she wants. She's very, very focused, driven, motivated. It has been a pleasure working with her. But I had a question for you, Judy. So you've touched on, you know, your first project has ended up becoming a trilogy. How exciting is that? But I had a question. If you have any plans to branch out into other types or forms of mental health issues, since you have now coined yourself as a mental health author, are there any other stories apart from Granville and Juliet that you want to touch on in the future?
Yes, I want to touch on a whole bunch of different issues. And so I'm going to talk a little bit in my next book. I'm going to, you know, not go into too much detail, but one of the things I'm going to be talking about is postpartum depression. It's a huge issue. It's a very big issue in our country. We have seen some real serious horror stories. People get upset when they think about you as a parent not wanting to be around your kid because you're having, you know, some hormonal issues. So I'm going to touch on that in one of my next projects. But I do want to just make sure that people know that it's okay to have these issues, and that a lot of us do. And that trying to be like too quiet about it and not talking to your support system is probably the most dangerous thing that we can do. And to be judgmental, we have to eradicate stigma. That is one of the #1 goals of my work, is to help eradicate stigma. And I want to say, working with Erica is a pleasure. She is an awesome, awesome editor. She's an awesome writing coach. So if you all are thinking about writing a book, having her as a writing coach is just a really big help. She helps me so much. She makes me look at things in a different way. It's not easy to write like this. To write fiction is hard. It's harder sometimes maybe than writing some other kind of books.
Well, as lawyers, we've been trained to write clinically, analytically, you know,
Yes.
factually, very organized. Yeah, it's a different style. It's a creative writing process.
So without Erica, I don't know if I could do it. She's an integral part of my team.
Judy, there's a question.
This is Judge Jones, and I actually wanted to make a statement and ask Judy to expound upon something that she just talked about, which is stigma. And it is, let me just first say that it is such a pleasure to have Judy as a part of my team at the Domestic Relations Court. and as the magistrate on my post-decree docket, a lot of the issues that we are faced with in post-decree concern mental health and, the lack of people acknowledging or being willing to address those issues because they are typically afraid of losing custody or afraid of what that may look like before the court. And Judy has, in my opinion, brought a very different perspective to that docket regarding mental health and stigma. But Judy, can you talk a little bit more about stigma, the stigma surrounding mental health and the impact that it has on, people's willingness or ability to seek treatment and to obtain help when they need it?
I would love to, Judge. And before I answer that question, I want to tell you all, it is a pleasure to work for Tanya Jones. Judge Jones is awesome. She cares about the people on her docket. She cares about the court. And it has been a blessing that I've been able to pivot and come over to the court with her. Thank you. And just to talk about stigma, it is a really big deal. And what I like to say is, stigma leads to discrimination or prejudice that leads to discrimination. It is, we're just going to keep on, having those things line up if we don't deal with it. There are people who would deal with their issues if they didn't feel that they were going to be looked down on, that somehow it's going to be used against them. So stigma is such a major issue here. And what I'm hoping is that we can, all work together as a community to eradicate it. One of the things that Judge Jones did, and I'm so happy that I'm a part of it, is she created the Families First docket. So where we are with her docket is the Families First program, where if there's someone who is having a mental health issue, if we have a family, they're divorced, they're in the midst of a divorce, they already are divorced, and there is some mental health issue that arises, that we can work with that family, that Judge Jones can be able to meet with that family so that we can try to make sure that kids have what every kid needs, and that's parents. If you have one parent that says, I don't want my child around that person because they're dealing with 1, 2, and 3, that parent who feels that way actually might be right. They may have concerns about their child's safety. But when we get together and start getting treatment in place and working on the assistance that's needed, that helps the whole family. In particular, it helps the kids. And I just want to say this, a lot of times what people need to realize is, I know you all heard this saying, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. We grow up to be our parents. The things we don't like about our parents, we wind up picking up those same traits. My mother's purse is a disaster. When I was growing up, I used to always complain about this woman's purse. You should see my purse. It's horrible. Okay, and I'm like, but I got everything in there you need, but it's going to take me a minute to find it. But what I'm saying is that oftentimes, if you have one person in the family unit that has this issue, if you were to do a genogram and we were to go back and research that person's family, we're going to find a bunch of people that have these issues. So what we need to do is to say, okay, it's like any other health problem. Mental health is healthcare too. That's how we eradicate stigma, by looking at it that way. If you have something going on with your mental health, it's not a failure. Just like if you have diabetes or if you have heart disease, those are physical illnesses. Oftentimes they're heredity. You inherited it from somebody in your family. So I'm hoping that my work is doing that. I know I was very long-winded on this question. I'm sorry if it's too long-winded. I hope I answered it.
It wasn't too long. It's most appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
There's a question. I didn't know if you saw it, Judy.
I couldn't see it when it came through. Sorry.
That's okay. Very few books address these issues so well as Judy's book. Has it gotten national exposure? If not, how can we help get it more exposure?
You know what? It hasn't gotten national exposure. I would love for it to. Everybody write Oprah and tell her to pick my book. We need to start a campaign. Pick Judy's book, Oprah. All you need is one thing like that to happen, and that can change everything. I think mental health is such a big deal now. You on every talk show, on every news program, it seems like it's the focus, in particular because we're all dealing with stuff with this pandemic right now. So, I just hope that, I continue to be able to get people to keep these type of issues on their lips.
Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Yes, I do. Judy, I noticed in the second book that this is Rochelle, that you
Hi,
talk.
Rochelle.
Hi, how are you doing, sweetie? I love your
I'm
book.
good. Thank you.
I'm not done with the second book. I'm still in the process of reading it. I was reading it during my recovery from surgery. And I wanted to tell you that I love the storyline about the trafficking, the human trafficking. And I wanted to ask you, and I came in a little late, so you may have addressed this earlier, but why was that such a vital storyline in this book, especially when you're dealing with the mental health? And how did you come upon that?
I wanted to really address the whole drug thing because I did a lot of work with people who have drug problems. That's where I came from. And what we're seeing is a lot of people who are becoming addicted, and then they're being taken advantage of. And what they do is they voluntarily become a part of this. That's what happened with my character. But you think you voluntarily became a part of it, but you can't leave. So that's the issue. I think that human trafficking is happening a lot more than we think it is. And one of the questions, a potential question that Kathleen had sent to me was about how hard was it to write about this? And did I think, like I talked about adults, it was a difficult thing to write about. And I could not bring myself to put kids in here. Like what I did was have my character kind of be protective of the kids because, she was like, she's an adult. You might not like what she do, but she do what she do because she was trying to get, high. But at the end of the day, to think about children being forced into this is just really difficult. But it happens every day. So what I'm hoping to do is, again, use the information in my book and the storyline to raise awareness. Erica just left, but I remember a couple of months ago, Erica had told me about a situation where somebody was at the mall with their daughter, and she noticed the man walking back and forth, looking at people in the food court. Her daughter went into the bathroom, and she was taking a long time to come back. So she went to go check on her daughter and found her daughter with these two strange women completely out of it. And they said, she said, what's going on? The mother said, what's going on? And they said, this is our friend. She had a little bit too much to drink. We're about to take her out, not knowing that this was the mother. These things can happen. Somebody can kidnap your kid, and they can end up in sex trafficking. It's happened here in Ohio more than once, where people are kidnapped or they meet somebody and they think that they're meeting a boy of their age, and it's adults who kidnap them. So it's just an important subject matter.
Judy, there's a question and a comment and another question. Did you see those? It says very proud.
I just want to finish this thought before I go.
Oh, excuse me.
Let me just finish this thought. It happens to men too. And that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that was in my book. This is not just something that happens to females. It happens to males also. Now I'm ready for the next question, Kathleen.
Sorry, Judy. Oh, it just says, very proud of Judy and blessed to call her my sister in Christ, our sorority and top ladies of distinction. Due to mental health becoming more prevalent during COVID, how can we become better advocates for mental health awareness? And then there is a couple more questions, if you saw those.
I didn't see any of them, but I'll answer that first question. Hi, Tammy, Lady Soror Tammy.
Hi, Soror Lady Judy.
I think that what we should be doing is always making sure that we keep our mental health in the same place that we have our physical health. A lot of other countries, they see this as a merger. Your physical and your mental health, you can't have one without the other. And I think that's a good way for us to look at stuff. If you're not doing well with your mental health, you're probably not going to be doing well with your physical health, and vice. So I think that what we need to do is to continue to talk about things that sometimes make us uncomfortable, to know that it is not a failing if you are dealing with this. If you have an anxiety disorder or a mood disorder, that you have a health issue, and that if properly managed, you can live a productive, full life. So let's just continue to talk about
it. Ready for another one?
I am. Thank
Okay.
you.
Actually, it's a double part question.
Okay.
Do you think you'll ever do a nonfiction book embracing these issues, or perhaps a children's book or teens book embracing these issues?
I've really been mulling the whole idea of a children's book about sickle cell. And so I have some good ideas for that. I have this whole program that I do for people called Know Your Cells. I'm going to take that maybe and pivot with it. It's so hard to get people to understand what's happening with sickle cell. And like my daughter, she sometimes will get angry because people don't know about sickle cell. And I told her, it's our job to teach people about it. If somebody doesn't know about it, don't get mad. What you do is you go and you learn about it. Or you teach people about it so they can know, and that we can have more awareness about it. So I am really thinking about those things. Maybe you'll help me, Soror Lauren.
Yes, your fellow author, right?
Right. And sorority sister too.
Oh, okay. Other questions?
Do you have some more questions or comments?
We have a few more minutes for just a couple more. Judy has another commitment at 1, so. Well, I mean, we can conclude our program now if that's fine with everyone. I don't want to cut anyone off.
I just want to tell people a little bit about me. If you want to know more about me, or you want to stay up with me, then make sure you follow me on my website, which is www.novelistjjwinston.com. I'm not good at this stuff.
And
also, you can follow me on social media. I am on Facebook and Instagram under Novelist JJ Winston. So if you want to get the new book, you know, you can get in touch with my virtual assistant, Covisa, and you can reach her at info@Novelist JJ Winston. Got to make sure I do all that stuff too.
Yeah,
that's the hard part about being an author, and you got to remember to do all those things.
Right, right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for providing such a wonderful program, a wonderful novel, and we're grateful to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor. I appreciate you all so much. Everybody who joined in, thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, that'll be it for today. Tune in. We hope to have more these virtual book discussions later in the year. Right, Dave?
All right.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. Look, maybe I'll turn on my camera one last time on my way out. Look, hey, look, so you can see my shiny face because I got dressed up for you guys.
Take care, Judy.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.